Well, greetings, everyone. Hopefully you're enjoying this lovely lunch here. President Harry S. Truman had a very famous saying, and he said, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. Fortunately, we do have a friend in Washington, and we're looking for that friend. We look to NATCA. We look to our air traffic controllers. As you know, the Airline Pilots Association continues to advocate for the complete realization and deployment of NextGen, as General Bolton had mentioned this morning. It's a massive infrastructure upgrade for our air transportation system. It's incredibly vital to our economy because it saves money, reduces emissions, improves sequencing, and above all, maintains and drives up safety. ALPA has long been a stakeholder in the development process of this program, and we stand by our partners and our friends at the FAA's Air Traffic Organization who will administer it. In particular, the members of NATCA, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. NATCA represents the 20,000 men and women who every day's efforts keep our airspace safe, help move traffic through our nation's skies, and truly are the voices who guide us home on every single flight. Because when you're in the air or taxiing on a ramp and you're looking for a friend, you always have a controller on the other end of that radio. If you live in the Washington, D.C. metro area, I'm sure you've also heard or seen their very successful public awareness campaign and also their sponsorship of some of the local sports teams. They are highly visible safety advocates in public and on Capitol Hill, and they're a key ally for ALPA, as we have heard time and time again, through the value of alliances in carrying out our collective message. It's my privilege to introduce you to Mr. Paul Rinaldi, the president of NATCA, who joins us today to share how NATCA has helped us and others advance and celebrate 100 years of commercial aviation. Paul has served 2 terms as the NATCA president beginning in 2009. He and his administration have developed a very strong relationship with the FAA and the Department of Transportation and have worked tirelessly to address issues such as fatigue mitigation, professional standards, who we were involved with helping them set up their programs, and the Air Traffic Safety Action Program, which is essentially a derivative of the ASAP program, which is such a beneficial tool for pilots and also for driving up the safety bar. Paul holds a number of senior positions in organizations, and pretty much any time you see any advisory board or committee where they're looking for the industry leaders, the voice of commercial aviation, you're going to see Paul Rinaldi and Lee Moak pretty much side by side in nearly all of those organizations. Paul spent 16 years as an air traffic controller just down the road at Dulles Airport and has taken that experience, coupled with a get-it-done attitude, and positioned NATCA for success today and into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me give a very warm welcome to one of our best friends in Washington and elsewhere, Mr. Paul Rinaldi.
Good morning, or afternoon, I should say. Hey, Sean, thank you for that introduction. I think that was really smooth and really nice, and I'm going to try to continue this speech that way. I was told I was going to meet Captain Happy. Is he here? Oh, man. Awesome. All right. Well, in fairness, I think that Sean is exactly correct. It's all about relationships and it's all about friendships. And NACA and ALPA have never had a closer relationship. And I thank Sean for his leadership and Captain Lee Moak for their leadership and all the brothers and sisters of ALPA for everything that they do every day. And it is an honor and a privilege, and I am humbled to be here to speak today at your 60th Air Safety Forum. It's impressive. Been around a long time. And we have learned so much from you. And we thank you for your friendship, your guidance, and all your help. And we're there together, NACA and ALPA, to continue to accomplish great things in the national airspace system and truly to grow this great partnership. Our philosophies seem to be the same. Let's run the safest, most efficient national airspace system in the world. Let's do it together. Let's do what makes sense. And when you guys need a lending hand on the Hill for whatever issues seem to be attacking pilots or our aviation industry, we're right there side by side with you, as you are with us when the lawmakers seem to be doing some very interesting stuff. And we could talk a little bit about that today, because we all know that 2013 was a very tough time for the aviation industry. We saw a government shutdown. We saw an implementation of sequestration, which, by the way, my friends, sequestration is just lying in wait. It is not dead. It will come back and rear its ugly head. And that is something that we, as a team, NACA and ALPA, need to address. We saw for the first time the FAA actually having to make some critical decisions, not based on the safety and the mission of the system, but based on money. We saw them looking at furloughing air traffic controllers from facilities across the country, 1 day per pay period for the rest of the year. We looked at, we saw them looking at closing 238 air traffic control towers across the country, not because it was safe, not because it was efficient, but because they needed to save money. They stopped critical maintenance on equipment and went to like a fix on fail policy, not because it was safe, certainly not because it was efficient, because they needed to save money. All for a lack of funding. In 2013, allowing e-readers and cell phones, the situation we had with the Dreamliner and the Boeing 787, the sleep apnea issues for controllers and pilots, the increased pilot requirements, you name it. We were there side by side with ALPA, working together to ensure the safety and the efficiency of the national airspace system. We have many challenges ahead of us. And if we continue this relationship and continue to grow and work together to modernize and enhance the national airspace system, we will continue to be the world leader in aviation. Pilots and controllers, every day, every flight, every transmission, making the system work. And I thank you for everything that you do every day. I'm a user of the system. I fly about 200,000 miles a year on a bunch of airlines, so let's not get into that. But I truly, when I see the pilot in the cockpit, and 99% of the time I don't even say hello. I know they're busy doing their pre-checklist. I know they're busy making sure everything is correct. I sit in that seat and I know the professional pilots of this country will get us there safely. And I thank you for everything you do in running this system. In 2014, we've reached an incredible milestone of aviation, 100 years of commercial aviation. The first commercial flight took place on January 1, 1914. A pilot, a passenger aboard a small plane started this tradition by successfully completing a short trip spanning a whole 21 miles and took 23 minutes between St. Petersburg, Florida, and Tampa, Florida, at a soaring altitude of 15 feet. This ignited this industry in which everyone in this room is proud to be part of. An industry that has inspired and dreamed and innovated and is not governed by what if. An industry that continues to press the limits. An industry that knows that communication and collaboration with the true stakeholders is the only way to successfully continue this mission. It has developed a commercial aviation which is awe-inspiring. An industry that is the cornerstone to the world economy, contributing $3 trillion to global economy in 2013. Aviation is responsible for over 53 million jobs worldwide, 12 million jobs in this country, $1.3 trillion to our gross domestic product every year. 100 years ago, some visionaries believed that one day, think about it, 100 years ago, technology, modernization, one day, the skies would be crisscrossed with airlines carrying freight and passengers. We barely had vehicles at that time, but they visioned, had this amazing foresight to see this happening. Air travel is the safest form of transportation. And over the last 100 years, the air travel transportation has seen incredible changes and growth. And ALPA, I am proud and I am secured and knowing that you were there almost from day one. This organization, this fine organization, has been there since the 1930s, ensuring the safety of the flying public and the safety of our skies. We've gone together from the dunes of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, to multiple crossing runways at Chicago O'Hare, to a single gate in St. Petersburg, Florida, to 207 gates at Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, the world's busiest airport. We've gone from one letter being flown in 1927 from Key West to Havana to over 50 million tons of cargo transported every year. The changes are mind-blowing. We've gone from the first air traffic controller in Lambert Field with a red flag and a checkered flag, old wheelbarrow on a chair, to over 600 air traffic control facilities across this country, providing services to 5,000 airports, 500 of them which provide commercial aviation or commercial operations. We went from ground navigation system of wooden arrows and cement arrows to radar, to ILS systems, to satellite-based navigation. From one passenger in 1914 to over 77,000 passengers in 1963, to 743 million passengers last year, projecting to do 1.15 billion passengers by 2034. The facts don't lie. The United States airspace system is the safest, most efficient, most diverse, most complex system in the world. And the last 100 years have been amazing. Let's play a video.
Aviation has traveled fast and far in the eventful years since the moment of Orville Wright's first flight in 1903. From then to now, the history of aviation has been a record of magnificent achievement. America, first to conquer the air, has given wings to the world. Old eyes can only marvel at new jets streaking man at supersonic speeds on his skyward course. The Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville, they were first to master the invisible sea of swirls and currents, which seemed determined to batter down anything that tried to fly.
could show you what you wanna see and take you where you wanna be. You could be my luck. Even if the sky is falling down, I know that we'll be safe and sound. I can lift you up. I can show you what you wanna see and take you where you wanna be. You could be my luck. Even if the sky is falling down, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound. We're safe and sound.
In an ever-shrinking world, the newest jet aircraft are graphic evidence of the ambition, skill, and high courage with which man has pursued his journey toward the stars. Yes, we have come far since the Wright brothers' first flight at Kitty Hawk. Yet the future holds still many new challenges. Where now? What next in man's conquest of the skies?
We are safe and sound for everything the pilots and the controllers do every day. Aviation is a uniquely American tradition and is intrinsic to our way of life. There's one thing for sure: as we look towards the next 100 years, aviation will drastically change. It will grow, it will become safer, it will become more efficient, and technology will take over a lot of our functions. And we will change this system successfully by the true operators, collaborating and communicating and working together to make changes that make sense. We have to make sure as we move forward in the next 100 years that we don't change past the level of trust. That as we change, we still trust that the equipment and the system and the operators are trained properly, and that the equipment is reliable enough to continue to run this great system. As we change, we cannot forget the lessons we've learned in the last 100 years. We all know that experimental flight can be fatal, and that the glory and the risk of flight should never be taken for granted. And we must remember the lessons we have learned in past accidents and incidents so that they never repeat themselves. We are all keenly aware of the glory and the risk of flight. And when we saw what went on in 2013, the conversation has shifted in Washington, D.C. towards what can we do with the air traffic control system. And I'm sure some of you have heard it and listened to it, and there's a lot of think tank conversations going around and a lot of people speaking that we need to be more like NAV Canada. And I'm not here to say anything derogatory towards NAV Canada. I think they have a wonderful system up there, but our system is incomparable. Their busiest airport is Toronto, and I believe runs just about 400,000 operations a year. Brothers and sisters, we have 35 airports in this country that run over 400,000 operations a year. We have some that run up to millions. We have, like I said, over 600 air traffic control facilities providing services. Incomparable. Now, NAV Canada is doing a lot of interesting things and doing a lot of innovative things with technology, and there's certainly things that we could adopt as we move forward. But as these people in these think tanks are trying to talk about what is the best way to move forward with the air traffic control system, we should never lose sight of the fact that we run the safest, most efficient system in the world, most complex and most diverse. And we take that for granted, and that's okay, because NACA and ALPA work together to ensure safety is always first. We are strong supporters together with our allies in ALPA in modernizing the national airspace system. And we understand the needs for next gen. And both Lee Moak and myself and Sean and Trish Gilbert, the Executive Vice President, are active stakeholders involved on committees in modernizing the system. And this collaboration is starting to bring some real fruit towards next gen. Projects that we saw in Houston just recently in optimizing the airspace, 61 new procedures, controllers and pilots. The whole world has changed in the Houston area. And we did it together by testing a little, developing a little, implementing a little, and then bringing it back, testing, implementing, and never pushing past the level of trust. That's how we're going to be successful. Whether it's ADS-B or performance-based navigation or recategorization of wake turbulence, Datacom or LSO, it's all about the trust of the true operators of the system. So these are examples of these programs I just threw out there of NextGen. But the real issue, which these think tanks and some of these foundations should be looking at, is how do we secure stable funding for the national airspace system? As I said earlier, sequestration is back. It will come back in 2015. The lawmakers seem to be able to get along on the even years when they have to go get reelected, and then on odd years they get to play with certain things. So I'm assuming in 2015 we will actually have a tough year. We need to find a stable funding system if we want to continue to modernize the system, continue to grow the system, and continue to have it as the economic engine that it is for this country and actually for the world. We are the world leader and we set the pace. But those mandatory cuts that we saw last year and the cutting and gutting of equipment and taking people off modernization projects set us back. TAMR and ERAM, which are our platforms to actually attach all the fancy new next-gen equipment to, have to be installed across the country so that we actually can use ADS-B, and we can use the Datacom, and we can use PBN appropriately. But as the stops and starts and continuing resolutions and 23 extensions of the last FAA reauthorization bill continues to be a regular way of life, it's very easy not to accomplish these things and lose sight of what you're trying to do. My friends here at ALPA, we all know that the airspace system deserves a stable funding. We all know that the flying public should demand it. And we all know that Congress can do it. And all of us together, if we fix the funding system of the national airspace system, then we can address the structure and move forward. We must identify the problem before we move forward and create more problems. As we celebrate the remarkable achievements of the last 100 years, and we continue to inspire and test the limits of flight, to continue to grow and modernize and enhance this system, just remember, what we thought was impossible yesterday is actually an accomplishment of today. And we all laugh and jest when Amazon says they're going to be using these drones or these remote pilot vehicles, right? That's what we're going to call them. Remote pilot vehicles to deliver packages. And we all snickered, like, how can that possibly be? But in 1914, did anyone snicker when they said there'll be airlines crisscrossing across the sky carrying passengers and freight? So what we think is impossible is probably the accomplishment of tomorrow. We need to work together, NACA and ALPA, to continue to ensure, as we advance, modernize, and enhance, we keep the level of trust, we ensure the level of safety, and we continue to be the world leader in aviation. Thank you very much. I think I'll have some time to take questions if you have any. Questions?
Hi, Paul.
Hi, John.
How are you? John Drexler, Air Traffic Service Group, liaison to NACA. Paul, I've heard you speak to this before, and you a little bit alluded to it in your remarks. But could you share with this audience your feelings about possible privatization of the air traffic control system?
Absolutely. I think that, first of all, I think privatization of the air traffic control system is a mistake, and I'm on record saying that. We're willing to have conversations with any group that wants to talk about some type of air traffic control reform, FAA restructuring. We do think that, listen, the FAA is not perfect. It is a big bureaucracy, and it does have its challenges. I get that. But we're running the safest, most efficient system in the world, and we don't need to just change for the sake of change. We need to address the problems, and address the problems means we have to address a stable funding system first. And then we can address the structure, and assuming that we're meeting the goals for all of the users. I've heard a lot of complaints about the certification process, about the FSDO process, about aviation medicine. I know you have heartburn, as I have heartburn with aviation medicine. There are a lot of problems in that. If we just looked at privatizing the FAA or the air traffic control system, you took that out, and for lack of a better term, we took it and NAV Canada this system, we would still have all those broken lines of business that happen in the FAA, and actually we'd probably have more broken lines because there's no connectivity whatsoever to the safety function, the regulatory function, aviation medicine. So, level of trust. We'll have any conversation. We'll talk about modernizing the system. We'll talk about reforming. But we really have to address the problem because 2015 is sneaking up on us, and it's stable funding. And there's no way for aviation to grow in this country if we're going to be, completely, hamstrung by the political whims of Congress. This system generates a tremendous amount of income. It needs to go back into the aviation system so we can continue to grow and continue to thrive.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Paul. Rip Torn again, Chairman of the ATS Group.
How are you?
It's some very good insights on this, and as we keep going back to the funding being one of the essential elements of next gen and this whole thing going forward, what specific things is NATCA looking at, recommending? Everybody says we need stable funding. What can we do to make that happen?
It's a good question. I think that there are little things that we could address so the administrator actually has the flexibility. You remember the argument that happened, it was last year about March, where some in Congress said the administrator did have the flexibility to move money from different lines of business. And the White House or OMB said that the administrator didn't have it, and they needed, it took 5 days of furloughs and delays for Congress to actually pass and give them the one-time ability to move money out of the AIP fund to actually fund the operation so that we can get back to normal business. Well, we saw that work. So how about we look as we move forward that the administrator, as we look at the FAA reauthorization bill of 2015, I think it's up in September next year, that the administrator has the ability to move money and to fund the operation first and fund the next gen projects first. But I think, when we look at next gen, we also have to make sure that we're actually putting energy, time, and our talents on projects that are actually going to deliver efficiencies, increase the safety, and it actually is going to meet the operator's needs, as opposed to, I know we have some manufacturers out there, and I'm not bad-mouthing, I'm just, instead of the manufacturers driving what next gen should be, it should be the operators. It should be the pilots and the controllers driving what would give us efficiencies, and certainly what would provide us a more safer environment.
Hi, Ben Strutton with the Air Traffic Service Group. There's been a lot of frustration with sequestration and funding. What's been the biggest success so far with next-gen implementation?
It's funny, and because the way government and the FAA budget money, they refuse to look at ERAM, which is the En route modernization platform, as a next-gen project. But it is, we're working on Commodore 64s, and it is an Apple, where we're able to now attach some advanced technology to where we could actually use Datacom, and we could use PBN, and we could use other technologies to increase the efficiencies. But I don't know how it started, but ERAM was never considered a next-gen project. So before we can even get to next-gen, we have to get our platforms in place. And in the terminal world, we have a program called TAMRA, which will upgrade all our terminal facilities, and we have about 92 of them. Everyone talks about, well, our antiquated equipment. It's usually the 92 terminals across the country, the low-level activity terminals that have the old radar scopes in the old system. So we're in the process of upgrading them also. And as we build our platforms, then we can continue to test the new equipment. So I would think that ERAM and TAMRA are, although not considered next-gen projects, are one of the successes that we have seen through collaboration with the FAA. And we're currently installed in 17 en route centers across the country. We have 3 or 4 more left to go. And that's a monumental task where we looked about 2010, we thought those programs were going to die, and we're almost fully implemented right now. So those are successes. I also look at airspace redesign, which used to call Metroplex, and then they switched it to OAPM, which is probably the worst acronym in the world, but it's OAPM. And if you look at what we did in Houston, and we're starting to roll out into North Texas, that's where we're going to see a lot of efficiencies where, continuous descent and unrestricted climbs would be our goal. Less fuel burn, less carbon footprint on the environment, and certainly more efficient for everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Paul. John Teely with Delta Airlines, the Air Traffic Safety Committee, and appreciate you speaking today. And also that what you've said, and part of that which has just been asked, I think, is part of my question. How does the association which you represent, is there greater opportunity for you to be more effective in bringing the technology online faster so that it can be implemented while it's still relatively new, as opposed to we've got this stuff that and this is year 2000, and now we're just finally getting it in place in 2014. And if you can answer that, how can you manage that piece of the puzzle?
I think it's a great question, and I think that, as I said earlier, controls and pilots should be kind of driving towards what's going to be important to give us the efficiencies. And being part of early development and early implementation, that's one of the parts that Nav Canada is doing. They have their engineers, their controllers, the pilots working together to say, this is what will give us efficiencies, and they're actually doing it together and then asking, said manufacturer to help them build it. That, I think, could help us. But in this current environment, I think just being involved early on, one of the problems with ERAM was they had engineers punching in codes and saying, oh yeah, it's ready to go. As soon as controllers started hitting the keystrokes of actual functions in which we had to do to hand off airplanes, to track the airplanes, the program started crashing. So you have to have the users of the system, the pilots and the controllers, early on developing and testing and implementing together. That's the only way to really do that. And we're at that stage right now. And we just have to make sure that the FAA and the manufacturers continue to do business that way.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that having such a talented, experienced, professional cadre of folks led by such capable leadership is really what's going to help us drive the ball forward. And incidentally, before I thank Paul, I got a text while you were talking from my 10-year-old boy Ian, who's watching us on webcast, and he said that you did a really nice job and the video was totally awesome.
Oh, cool.
I'm not making this up. He did text me while you were talking.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Paul.
Well, thank you.